Minimalism has many different benefits, but unfortunately it also comes with its own downsides. And today I want to talk about dark side of minimalism and also why I'm considering not calling myself a minimalist anymore. Now, I want to start by saying that minimalism has been absolutely life-changing for me, and I would recommend everyone to kind of try and live more minimally, or at least follow some minimalist principles. But then at the same time, as with every movement, there are some toxic sides to it that I've been noticing more and more lately, and that I want to talk about in this video, because I feel us fashion girlies are often misunderstood in the minimalist community. And I've also noticed with myself and also with the poll that I did, which I'm going to talk about in a second, that very often minimalism can actually have a negative impact on our style and then of course the extension on our lives. But first I want to share the data of the poll that I did with you, because I wanted to hear your opinion about the topic, if you can be a minimalist, if you love fashion and you want to have more variety. So I asked, you answer, and here are the results. The most common answer was yes, minimalism is not about numbers, but about the mindset, about mentality. And this actually came to 67%, which I have to admit, I didn't expect this one to be the top answer, but I'm very pleasantly surprised because I think this is the healthiest view we can have of minimalism. And then the second most common answer is I don't care about minimalism, I prefer slow and mindful fashion, which came to 31%. This answer I included because I know a lot of you don't really care about the label minimalism, but you just want to shop mindfully, enjoy your closet, and enjoy your style. And I honestly thought this one is gonna outwin all of them. And then the answer, no, you have to have a certain number of items to be a minimalist, came less with only 2%, which was actually really surprising to me. I thought this number is gonna be much higher. I of course assumed it's going to be less, but just the percentage, I thought it's going to be much higher, because I know some of you've noticed and you kindly defend me in the comments, but every time I publish a video on my minimalist collection or something decluttering, a lot of people in the comments start complaining that this is not minimalist, that this is not minimalism. And that is why I even got curious about creating this video, because I wanted to understand, why is this happening? Why are people upset about this? And also, what are the implications of using the word minimalist and how it has effect on our style? That's why I asked you this question, and I also asked you to share your opinions and stories. And when I was reading through your comments, I realized that okay, even though the top winning answer is the healthy one that I absolutely believe in, I've noticed in the comments we can still fall into the trap of minimalism and the toxic side, and I identified 5 ways specifically how is minimalism ruining our style and life. Now, the first huge problem when it comes to minimalism is that nobody can agree exactly what minimalism is. And that is why I'm getting so many different comments that this is not minimalism, is because obviously we have different definitions of minimalism. Because for me, this is minimalist, for a lot of you, this is minimalist, but then for some other people, this doesn't count as minimalism. And also, as I was reading the comments, the same thing I've noticed, we all have slightly different versions of minimalism, which is not a problem in itself, but where it comes problematic is actually in 2 different ways. The first one is that if we aspire to be a minimalist, but we don't have a clear definition of minimalism, we're gonna get into trouble, because A, we're not gonna know when we actually achieved our goal, and B, we cannot even plan in a smart way to really use our resources, time, and energy in the best way possible. It's like the story from Tony Robbins, which explains this very nicely. I think it was on the seminar or something, but one person came to Tony and he said, one of my goals is to have more money. And then Tony grabbed a wallet and gave him $1. And he said, here you go, now you have more money. Happy? And the other person was like, no, this is not what I meant. And then Tony was like, what did you mean? You have to be specific. And I think the same applies to minimalism. Very often we have this abstract idea of minimalism that sounds so good in our heads, but then we're not really sure what it means. So if this resonates with you, I have a proposition, and that is to forget about minimalism and actually find a specific tangible goal that you want in your life. Because I think what we all forgot is that minimalism is actually not the end goal. It's not supposed to be the end goal. Minimalism is a tool to help us achieve our specific goal. And that is why it's important you get very clear on what you want to achieve with your closet, and you want to be specific. Maybe your goal is that you feel at peace with your wardrobe. And this is very specific because you can answer it yes or no. If someone asks you, do you feel at peace with your closet? You can just say yes or no. That's why I also created a video on how much clothes we should own with a very specific checklist, because I wanted to help you find that sweet spot so you can know exactly, okay, do I need to declutter? Do I need to work on my style? Or maybe do I need to buy some new pieces? Or lastly, maybe I just leave everything as it is. So you want to be as specific as possible. Even if you're talking about your emotions, you want to be specific so you know exactly when you achieve the goal. And also, as I've said, because minimalism is just a tool, all of a sudden you will realize there are many different ways to get to your end goal, because now minimalism is not something you have to have. Now you can realize, okay, maybe I can start tracking my wardrobe, maybe I can start analyzing, maybe I can try different things and use my resources and time a little bit better, because my end goal at the end of the day is to feel at peace with my wardrobe, and minimalism is just a tool, and you can take what you want and discard what you don't need. And then also I wanted to add on here that even if you have a minimalism definition that it's very clear to you, that you love, that you achieved, when you consume content online with the words minimalism and then you notice these comments that are criticizing the version of minimalism you have, subconsciously you can start doubting yourself a little bit, and again you can get a little bit more restless, and you start thinking that maybe you need to have less stuff, maybe I need to be a better minimalist or a true minimalist, which I hate the true minimalist trope, but you get the idea. Pretty much minimalism is a tool, not the end goal. And now the second problem with minimalism is that we can often experience not just guilt, but intense guilt when buying something new. And I hate this about minimalism so much. And I don't use the word hate often, but I really hate that this is what minimalism became, because 10 years ago, when I discovered minimalism, everything was about reducing the clutter. But then over the years, a lot more people chimed in, and we also got the rise of extreme minimalism that performs incredibly well online. And with all of that, we got a little add-on, and that is that if you're a minimalist, you also now have to shop more frugally, to a point where you start feeling guilty when you buy something new. In preparation for this video, I was kind of curious and I was like, let me check the different definitions online. I saw so many different definitions of minimalism. None of them talk about shopping, because technically minimalism is about reducing the clutter, letting go of what doesn't serve us, and only focusing on things that bring us value. This is minimalism in a nutshell. So all of this guilt of shopping and these different rules of how much you can buy, how little you can buy, you can only buy if you need something but not if you want something, this is very new, and that is what I want to call myself a minimalist anymore, because this really sabotaged my style the most, and I'm gonna explain more in a second. But first, I also want to mention that just because I hate the guilt of shopping, of course I'm not recommending that we're careless with our money and just mindlessly consume. Of course we want to be intentional, that is very smart, but on the other side, how we achieve that is not through guilt, because guilt is not a great motivator for a long-term change. Yes, it may work in the short term if someone judges you or maybe points a finger at you, or maybe you do that to yourself. It might work a little bit for a little time, but then the negative emotions are gonna be too much and we're gonna go back to our habits. And that's why with this channel, I do my best to be not judgmental and to give you really creative solutions on how you can figure out and actually reduce the want, not through guilt, but actually through experimentation and creativity. So this is something that I just wanted to quickly mention and cover. But now to how this affected my style, my life, my happiness, and maybe it's affecting yours as well. But pretty much because of guilt of shopping and also wanting to buy the perfect item I can wear for years and years and almost forever pretty much, I noticed that when things in my life change, maybe my lifestyle change, my preferences, or even my body, I experienced a lot of weight fluctuation in the last 5 years, and that in itself, it's not really the issue because it happens to a lot of us, but because of minimalism, I didn't allow myself to buy pieces when things change. If I realized that my preference changed, I was like, okay, I have to wait. I have to wait and see if this sticks. If yes, I'm gonna allow myself to buy more. If not, I'm just gonna wait it out. And the same with my body. When I gained the weight, I was like, I cannot just go out and buy new pieces. I have to wait and see if it sticks. And then if I lost the weight, again, I have to wait to see if it sticks. And then I gain the weight back. Okay, I have to wait and see and it sticks. And that's how pretty much it was going on for the last, I don't know how many years, because every time an experience that changed, I had to wait it out and see if it sticks. And looking back, this is really I'm really sad for myself actually, because I really deprive myself in a way that I shouldn't, and I should have pieces in my wardrobe that make me feel great. And honestly, a lot of my pieces, most of my pieces, obviously they make me feel great, but when it comes to jeans specifically, maybe you've noticed I didn't upgrade that many bottoms throughout the years, and there is the reason for that, because I was afraid that I'm gonna buy something for my new weight and that the weight is gonna change again, and then I'm gonna buy something for the new weight and it's gonna change again. And with hindsight, now that I see how much my weight has been fluctuating for how long, obviously I realized the smart thing to do was to buy a few pieces in the bigger size so I can rotate between smaller and bigger and smaller and bigger. But in the moment, it really felt like I have to wait it out. I have to wait it out. I didn't see it long term. I was like, okay, I just have to wait a few more months. Okay, a few more months. It's like waiting, and then all of a sudden it's been years. So my suggestion to you is that if you feel guilty about shopping, that you take a pause and look at your life, maybe for the last, I don't know how many years, and try to see how it was stopping you in your style and in your life and in your happiness. And maybe you can identify some patterns where you've been holding yourself back, like I did with my, weight fluctuations. And now, as always, I would really appreciate that if you're enjoying this video, that you give it a thumbs up. And also, if you have any of your own stories about how minimalism ruined your style or life, it doesn't have to be dramatic, but if you have any kind of stories about that, I would really appreciate a comment so we can all learn from each other. Thank you. Now the third problem is connected to the second one actually, because it's a different side of the same coin, and that is fear of decluttering something we might potentially buy in the future. And this is something you don't experience right away, because when you discover minimalism and you start decluttering and you have an abundance of stuff, it's very easy. You just declutter and declutter and declutter and declutter. But then once you really curated your closet and your home, and now your numbers are a lot smaller, now you realize, okay, if I declutter this item, I might potentially create a gap in my closet, in my style, which means I might potentially have to buy something similar in the future. And the reason this is connected to the second point is because if we don't have a guilt of buying something new, we also won't have a fear of decluttering something we might potentially buy in the future. So this is another area how we can be holding ourselves back in our style and in life, because if we have a smaller closet and we experience guilt when buying something new, we're also gonna have trouble decluttering something, because what if I need to buy something similar in the future? It doesn't even have to be the same thing. It can also be just an item in the same category. If we have a guilt of shopping, we're also going to be very, very reluctant to declutter. Or even if we have something in our closet, which might very well happen, that we actually wear, but we just don't like it. But because we have a guilt of shopping and we're not allowing ourselves to upgrade this new item, we're also not gonna let go of that item. So this is kind of ironic and a little bit backwards, but honestly, it's very, very true. And if you've seen the changes on my YouTube channel and how much I decluttered, especially our home this year, it's because I made a deal with myself. I was like, I'm gonna let go of everything that doesn't serve me, even things that I use, anything that doesn't bring me value, anything that I wouldn't buy it again. I decided to declutter because I made peace with myself that if I create a gap unintentionally, I can buy something similar, and I'm gonna be gentle with myself and I'm gonna be compassionate. So pretty much I did one of the best declutters of my life because I stopped chasing this idea of minimalism, that I have to have things for a long time, that I cannot buy new things, that I cannot declutter and buy something similar if I make a mistake. Because I let go of all of that, ironically, I decluttered my home even more. And then the fourth problem with minimalism is the assumption that less is always better. And we can see right away how this can get us in trouble, because if we think less is better, we're gonna start forcing ourselves to declutter just for the sake of the numbers. And I can tell you this from personal experience, because this was a long time ago, but I don't know, 8-9 years ago, I'm not sure. But at one point I owned only 3 black bags, which I don't know how I did it, but I had 1 small bag, medium bag, and 1 tote bag because I wanted to be a minimalist. But honestly, I felt miserable with my bag collection. All of them were really plain and simple too, because I wanted to have them really versatile to go with everything. and I just felt deprived and there was no joy. And you know me, how much I love my bags. This year I realized that I can have a really small capsule. Just give me the bags, give me the shoes, and maybe some accessories, and I'm just gonna feel so much happier. But pretty much with that experience, I realized that less is not always better, and that we have to find, as I've said before, the perfect number, the sweet spot for ourselves. But then the second reason how this can be problematic is that we're looking for perfect hybrids. So for example, if you need a new pair for your everyday wear, but then also a new pair for your evening wear, instead of buying two different pairs that would suit you best in those different situations, because you want to have the smaller amount of items, you're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna look for the hybrid that can do it all. And then you search and search, and you also waste a lot of time, because finding hybrids, it's not easy, believe me. You spend a lot of time looking, but then you finally find the perfect item, you buy it, and you wear it for every day, and you wear it for the evening, and you realize that it's kind of meh. You discover that they're not really scratching the itch for your everyday wear, and they're also not scratching the itch for your evening wear, and that you would be better off if you just would buy two separate shoes, even though you would, gasp, have a bigger shoe collection. So this is just one example. It can also be seasonal. Maybe you want shoes that you can wear in every single season, for every single weather, for every single whatever. And this can become problematic, because then we buy items that don't really scratch the itch for a specific situation, and then we're not feeling ourselves, we're not feeling our style, we're not enjoying our outfit and all of that. And of course, I have to mention that there is a difference between versatility and a hybrid. Versatility is something, let's say you're buying a pair of shoes and you ask yourself, okay, can I wear this with 5 combinations, maybe 10 combinations? This is versatility. But a hybrid, it's versatility on steroids. It's like, can I wear this in 50 different scenarios? It's really crazy, it's really insane, and it's really out there, and it's really hard to find. And even once you find it by magic, it doesn't really give you the style and the impact that you wanted. And then the fifth problem is that there is only focus on utility and practicality, and not on beauty and self-expression, which is again another reason why I don't want to be a minimalist, I call myself a minimalist anymore, is because I feel there is this over importance on the need. Do you need this? Do you need this? Do you use it? Do you need this? Is it practical? Is it a hybrid? Always this practicality, always this need. But then we're kind of neglecting the expression, the beauty, the want, which is also, I believe that wants also have a place in our life. I know some people, again, that's why I'm talking about minimalism and fashion, because I know some people who discover minimalism and they're not into fashion. Decluttering their closet is fairly easy process. They go in there, they declutter everything. A lot of them wear similar things every single day. They maybe have a t-shirt in I don't know how many copies, and that's it. And I get it, it makes sense for them. But for me, I would just feel so deprived and my life would be so boring. So pretty much I want to have pieces in my closet that are for self-expression and beauty, and they feel like piece of art to me. And also what I realized that I bought into the lie, because sometimes it can come across that way that you have to choose between practical stuff and then also beautiful self-expression stuff. And I get it, sometimes you have to with some basics. Okay, some basics, they have a purpose in our closet. But then I also realized that this year, when I added pieces to my closet, that you can actually find both, and they can be really practical, but then also very beautiful. Like the 2 bags that I recently added to my collection, those I would say they're very practical, even though they might not seem like that, but I bought them very intentionally. They go with majority of my closet and stuff, but then at the same time they feel like me. They are self-expression piece, and when I put it on every simple outfit, they just make a 10 in my eyes. So if you notice with your style that you're really focusing on practicality and utility and how you can use certain piece, and you kind of started neglecting the beauty part, the self-expression part, that you can start paying attention to that as well. And you can upgrade a few pieces, you can add a few pieces, you can do whatever you want, it's your life. But pretty much if we're not careful, again, our closets can become really boring and they don't really have any personality. And to tie everything nicely together with a little bow, my message of this video is that when we aspire to be a minimalist, and this is our end goal, we can start disconnecting with ourselves and what we personally like, what we personally want, what are our goals in our life, what do we want to achieve, how do we want to feel with our closet, how do we want to feel in our outfits. when we keep following the movement that keeps changing the rules or adding the rules, or just you have different definitions online, you can very easily disconnect with yourself and you stop listening to yourself and you don't pay attention to your inner voice and what you actually need and what you actually want. So this has been my experience, that I've just been not paying enough attention to my Leo voice. Obviously, I'm not sure how this video is coming across. Not everything is bad, obviously. I still enjoyed my style plenty over the years, but with hindsight, I can see certain areas how I was limiting myself and how I can make my life more joyful, easier, and better in the future. And that's why, as I've said, until the end of year, I'm gonna kind of let go of the label minimalist and I'm gonna see how it makes me feel. Do I feel more free? Do I feel more joyful, lighter? I'm gonna start experimenting and then I can give you an update. So it's not about that minimalism is all bad. Obviously it isn't. It's just I want to let go of the label and the pressure. And if you feel inspired to figure out your sweet spot for your closet and style, I will link another video that you can watch here. Thank you so much for stopping by today and I will see you next time.